Okay, let's unpack this. We're diving deep into a situation that is uh, really evolving by the minute. I'm talking about the intense and, frankly, rapidly escalating conflict between Israel and Iran. We're now looking at 5 straight days where these two powers have been trading strikes. It's pushing the region into an even more anxious state.
That's absolutely right. And our mission today really is to try and cut through some of that noise. We want to give you a clear, concise picture of what's actually happening on the ground, the latest developments, which are significant, and the international reactions, which are, well, quite varied. We'll focus mostly on the timeline, especially what's unfolded today, Tuesday, June 17th, 2025.
Yeah, this deep dive is all about getting you informed quickly but thoroughly. We want to bring you those surprising facts and the crucial context you need. And just a quick reminder for everyone listening, all the information we're discussing is updated as of today, Tuesday, June 17th, 2025. Things are moving fast. So let's jump right into the latest then. 5th straight day of hostilities. It reportedly kicked off last Friday with that surprise assault by Israel on Iranian military and nuclear facilities. What have we actually seen happening today, Tuesday the 17th?
Well, on Tuesday, reports indicate Israel carried out what they described as several extensive strikes. These were deep inside western Iran. They said they were targeting missile sites and other, military facilities. Dozens of missile and drone facilities were reportedly hit, and we've seen footage, verified by Al Jazeera apparently, showing these large plumes of smoke rising from several areas in Iran's Isfahan province, so substantial impacts, it seems.
Okay, extensive strikes from Israel. How did Iran respond? Was it immediate?
It seems it was pretty swift, yeah. Iran reportedly returned fire with missiles. Iranian media started reporting loud explosions, particularly in the northwestern city of Tabriz.
Tabriz, right. That hosts an Air Force base Israel has reportedly hit before, hasn't it?
Exactly, repeatedly since Friday, according to reports. And beyond Tabriz, Iran's state-run Noor News also reported, tragically, 3 people killed and 4 injured in strikes on Kashan, a central city. And there were also reports of a residential building struck in Tehran. 3 people apparently rescued from the rubble there, so the human cost is definitely visible.
So Iran fires back. What did Israel experience from this latest round?
The official Iranian news agency, IRNA, they stated 8 missiles were launched at Israel. The Israeli military confirmed more missiles came in, saying, quote, most were intercepted, though they didn't give many more details than that.
Most intercepted, but explosions were still heard.
Yes, reportedly over Tel Aviv and Jerusalem, among other areas. And there were images circulating, apparently showing smoke rising from a strike site in Herzliya. Emergency services were deployed there.
Herzliya. Okay, now this is where it gets really interesting, doesn't it? Israel's emergency service reported 10 people injured, not from direct hits, but while running to shelters in Tel Aviv. But Al Jazeera also reported, from Amman, that the Israeli military censor has apparently forbidden publishing images and info about Herzliya, classified it as sensitive.
Right, and that kind of classification usually points towards something significant being hit, military intelligence, some kind of strategic asset.
And does Iran's side give us any clues?
Well, potentially. Iran's Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, the IRGC, they reportedly stated quite specifically that they targeted intelligence buildings in Herzliya. They even named names Mossad, Israel's foreign intelligence, and Israeli military intelligence.
Wow, okay. Very specific.
Very specific. Now, Israel hasn't, as far as we know, responded to that particular claim, but it suggests Iran believes it hit something important in the intelligence sphere, a very pointed message.
So beyond these direct missile exchanges, there's another layer. Israel reportedly targeting Iranian leadership.
That seems to be part of the strategy, yes. Amidst all these strikes, the Israeli military reportedly claimed on Tuesday they assassinated another senior Iranian military official, General Ali Shadmani. He was reportedly killed in an Israeli Air Force strike in central Tehran using precise intelligence, is how they put it.
And who was Shadmani, according to Israel?
They described him as Iran's wartime chief of staff, their senior-most military official, and significantly, the closest military advisor to Supreme Leader Khamenei. He'd apparently only just been appointed after Israel allegedly assassinated the previous commander, Gholam Ali Rashid, back on Friday.
So potentially taking out 2 top commanders in just a few days. Has Iran confirmed this?
Not immediately, no. Iran hasn't commented on the Shadmani claim yet, but if it is confirmed, targeting someone that high up, it suggests Israel is really trying to decapitate the command structure.
Disrupt their whole war effort, perhaps.
Exactly. Disrupt planning, decision-making, maybe even morale. It would be a major strategic blow.
Okay, let's shift focus slightly. The nuclear program. Israel keeps saying these attacks are about stopping Iran getting a bomb. What's the latest there?
This is a crucial question. The International Atomic Energy Agency, the IAEA, they reportedly put out an update on Tuesday. They now believe Israel's first attacks, back on Friday or Saturday, on the Natanz enrichment site had direct impacts on the underground centrifuge halls.
Underground? I thought they'd only acknowledged hitting something above ground before.
That was the initial understanding, yes. But this new assessment suggests the underground facilities, where most of the enrichment actually happens to protect it from airstrikes, were directly affected. We saw satellite imagery from Saturday showing buildings destroyed at Natanz, but hitting the underground part is potentially much more significant.
Significant enough for Netanyahu, Israel's prime minister, to claim on Monday that the strike set Iran's nuclear program back a very, very long time.
That's his claim, yes. But connecting this to the bigger picture, it's also reported that Israel hasn't managed to hit Iran's other major enrichment site, Fordo.
Fordo is the one built deep into a mountain, right?
Right.
Much harder to reach.
Precisely. It's heavily fortified. Some sources suggest hitting Fordo effectively would probably require U.S. involvement, specifically B-2 stealth bombers deploying specialized bunker-busting bombs.
Bunker busters. Sounds serious. So some sites are potentially still out of reach for Israel alone.
That seems to be the assessment, yeah.
Right.
Which highlights just how difficult neutralizing the entire program would be, and the potential for much wider conflict if that became the goal.
And it's not just physical attacks. We're also seeing things happen in the cyber domain.
Indeed. This fight is definitely happening online, too. Iran's bank SIPA, that's their first bank, it's been sanctioned by the US and UK before it's reportedly facing major technical problems. Customers apparently can't use ATMs or bank cards. Widespread disruption.
And someone's claiming responsibility.
A group calling itself Predatory Sparrows reportedly has. They're a hacktivist group with a history. They've been linked to disrupting Iran's fuel distribution system back in 2021 and also paralyzing railway networks.
And is there any suspected state link to this group?
Well, some unnamed U.S. defense officials have in the past reportedly linked attacks by this group to the Israeli state.
So potentially another front opened up by Israel or actors linked to them, targeting Iran's financial infrastructure.
It certainly looks like a possibility. Disrupting a major bank like that could aim to cause economic instability, public anger, maybe hinder government and military financial operations. It's another pressure point.
Okay, let's widen the lens now to the international perspective, particularly President Trump's involvement. He left the G7 summit early on Monday because of this, right?
Yes, he left early, citing the Middle East situation. And then on Tuesday, speaking on Air Force One, he made some pretty strong statements. He said he was looking for a real end to this conflict, not just a ceasefire. He repeated it, an end, a real end, not a ceasefire, an end.
A real end, what does that imply?
It's a quite definitive language. He also denied leaving the G7 was about arranging a ceasefire, saying it was much bigger than that. It signals perhaps a desire for a more fundamental resolution, whatever that might mean.
And he also put out that warning on social media, telling people to evacuate Tehran.
He did. Overnight, reportedly telling everyone should evacuate Tehran immediately and lamenting the waste of human life, extremely direct.
And the comments about Khamenei.
Even more direct and quite personal towards the supreme leader. Trump reportedly posted that the U.S. knows Khamenei's location, called him an easy target. He added, "We are not going to take him out, kill, at least not for now, but we don't want missiles shot at civilians or American soldiers. Our patience is wearing thin."
Wow. And followed by unconditional surrender in another post.
Yes. That demand as well. It's highly unusual, a very aggressive rhetoric aimed directly at the top leadership of another country. It really escalates the verbal stakes.
He also made claims about U.S. military dominance.
Claimed the U.S. has complete and total control of the skies over Iran. And he dismissed a prior U.S. intelligence assessment that Iran wasn't building a nuclear weapon. Reportedly said something like, "I don't care what she said, I think they were very close to having them." Which suggests he's operating on his own assessment of the nuclear threat.
So, a very hard line. But any room for diplomacy left in his view?
Interestingly, yes, perhaps a sliver. Despite the rhetoric, he reportedly indicated talks might still be possible. Mentioned he might send Vice President J.D. Vance and Special Envoy Steve Witkoff to meet Iranian negotiators, depending on what happens when he gets back to Washington.
And Vance commented too.
Yeah, Vice President Vance reportedly said Trump has shown remarkable restraint so far, but may decide he needs to take further action to end Iranian enrichment. So it's this mix of extreme pressure with maybe a very conditional off-ramp.
What about other countries, the G7 before Trump left?
Right, before he departed, the G7 leaders reportedly agreed on a statement. It called Iran the principal source of regional instability and terror and affirmed Israel's right to defend itself.
But they also called for de-escalation. Seems a bit contradictory.
It does reflect that tension, doesn't it? Condemning Iran, supporting Israel's defense, but also urging a pullback. It shows the widespread international concern about this spiraling further.
And other regional players? Jordan, Qatar.
Yes, important voices there. Jordan's King Abdullah II reportedly warned Israel's attacks on Iran posed a threat to people everywhere, a broader humanitarian concern. And Qatar reportedly strongly condemns the attacks on Iranian nuclear facilities, calling them an uncalculated measure.
Qatar also mentioned diplomacy.
They did. Qatar stated they believed Iran was progressing in a positive diplomatic course with Washington and that there was an American desire for an agreement.
Which sounds quite different from President Trump's latest statements.
Very different. It highlights that not everyone in the region or internationally sees the situation or the diplomatic potential the same way. There are clearly different perspectives and maybe different channels at play. And again, it's worth remembering all this information is current as of today, Tuesday, June 17th, 2025.
So after all that, what does this all mean for you listening to this?
Well, I think this deep dive really shows just how complex and fast-moving this conflict is. It's impacting lives directly on both sides, and it's pulling in global powers in a very dramatic way.
Yeah, we've seen so many layers. The direct military strikes, missiles flying back and forth, these alleged assassinations of top commanders, then the cyber attacks hitting infrastructure. And layered on top of all that, these incredibly direct, forceful comments from President Trump that sort of redraw the lines.
Absolutely. And those calls for a real end, not just a ceasefire, they really raise profound questions, don't they? About what the long-term goals are and what stability or instability might look like down the road.
So maybe a final provocative thought for you to consider as we wrap up. When you see these very immediate kinetic events, the strikes, the cyber attacks, combined with such strong, almost unprecedented statements from world leaders like President Trump, how do you think these actions and words are actually shaping the real strategic goals of everyone involved in the Middle East right now? And what could the ripple effects be, not just there, but for global stability overall? Something to think about. We definitely encourage you to keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep yourself informed as this critical situation continues to develop.